What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tierfon Orbital. So today's demo video is going to be for a Korbanth Darth Malak. This is a very interesting looking hilt, which made for a very interesting install. Not an interesting install. I mean, it was a very straightforward install. However, I do want to talk about it. We are going to come into Fusion and talk about the chassis. The thing about this hilt is it's a very interesting shaped. There's an interesting shape to this hilt, right? Another thing that you have to keep in mind are the fact that these switches are so low on the hilt, and there are a lot of complications that can come when designing a chassis and trying to install a hilt that's got switches that are so low, right? And I am going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the route that I went with this install, and then we are going to come up top, do a quick demo, put a blade in it, and then we will be on our way, right? Relatively quick one today. So with all of that out of the way, let's come into Fusion and talk about this chassis. All right, so here it is. This is a very plain Jane chassis. Not my typical greebly filled chassis, and there is a reason for that, right? So this is a fully internal battery chassis, okay? Due to the way that this hilt is set up with the space requirements, especially where the switches are, I just chose to go with a static internal chassis with an internal battery, okay? There is a very small portion of this chassis that is visible when you take the pommel off. So I just added a few extras in this section, right? There are two rectangular LEDs for some accents. There's some very simple greebling around back where the kill switch is. But other than that, very simple chassis setup, okay? And again, I did this because of how this hilt is set up, right? These switches are just so low down here that I just chose to go with a static chassis where you can see a little bit of it when you remove the pommel. And we'll talk about that when we come up top, right? 24mm speaker in this. This is a 1-inch internal diameter all of the way through, right? So 24mm speaker. Your kill switch is right here. Around the other side, there is a female USB-C port. Now, one of the cool things about Proffie V3 is that it has integrated onboard charging, right? So you can charge your battery by plugging a USB charger directly into the USB, like onboard USB port on the Proffieboard, or you can wire up a USB-C, like a female USB-C port, and this will also allow for data charging, right? So you can charge the battery through that USB-C port, and you can also access your board, transfer files, transfer fonts, and upload your config through that port as well, right? Proffieboard sits here, and that's it. A very simple chassis. I probably didn't even have to come into Fusion for this one, but you know, very simple chassis. Proffieboard is here, battery is up top, battery will live inside of the hilt. Around back, this nubbin here this is how the chassis is secured into the hilt. There is an external knurled thumb screw that helps to secure this in place. If you ever need to slide this chassis out a little bit, you can undo that knurled thumb screw. However, I don't recommend it. You really should never have to do that. You're going to be accessing your Proffieboard through this USB-C port, right? So let's get a better look at that and come up top. All right, so here it is, the Darth Malak from Korbanth Sabers. Now, I have seen this hilt over the past couple of years, and I've actually never had one in hand. But one of the first things that I did notice about this hilt, whenever I see switches down below or down low, I already know that it's going to be an out of the box, out of the norm install, right? Because typically when your switches are up high, you can do a lot of things with your install. You can make it a fully removable chassis and have a PCB system up here. It just makes it a little bit easier when your switches are up high. When they are down low, you've got to figure out how you're going to get these switches to connect to the Proffieboard that is in your chassis. And there are really only two ways to do that, right? You do a fully internal chassis and just wire everything up internally, or you can do a removable chassis with like spring switch connectors or spring PCBs. Now, initially I did try to design something like that, but because we have such a thin internal diameter in this hilt, those switch PCBs or those spring PCBs would not be an option, unfortunately. Okay, so for this one, I just chose to go with a fully internal static chassis. right? But other than that, very interesting looking hilt, very interesting feeling grip. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to use this guy. You are not going to be removing this whole chassis, but to get to your USB-C port and to charge it, you're going to unthread your pommel. Now here is that little portion of the chassis that is viewable. Okay, this USB-C port back here is how you will charge your battery. Now, to you, the customer, just something that you need to keep aware of, right? Or be aware of. Charging through USB on a Proffieboard is significantly slower than it is with an external battery charger for obvious reasons, right? An external battery charger is going to handle a lot more load. It's going to have a lot more amps that's going to be able to charge those batteries. For the Proffieboard, think of it like a trickle charger, okay? You're going to plug this in. It's going to take a little bit longer to charge that battery, a couple hours. Usually what I do is I'll plug it in at night and just leave it charging overnight. And then it should be fine. The same thing goes with data transfer through USB, okay? Obviously, taking your SD card out to put fonts on your hilt, like taking your SD card out and putting it in an adapter is going to be very quick because you're plugging it directly into your computer. Doing data transfer over USB is a little bit slower, okay? Just so that's something to be aware of. Another thing that I really need to hammer home is you really need to make sure that you are manually ejecting your SD card when you are done uploading your config or uploading fonts. And by that I mean, you know, for PC users, you're going to right click on this Proffieboard when it shows up in your PC and hit eject or click eject. For Mac users, it's just the eject button. But just make sure you're doing that, because sometimes if you just yank this USB cord out of the port, it can cause the files on the SD card to corrupt. And then you are going to have to slide this chassis out and get at the SD card and reformat it. And that's just a pain, right? This chassis is held in place here with this knurled thumb screw, right? So there's really no need to unthread this. It does keep the chassis in place. So just be aware of that. If you feel the chassis is coming loose a little bit, you can just go ahead and crank down on that and make sure it's tightened, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. There's a kill switch here. There are those two rectangular LEDs that are lit. Okay. Now I have a blade plug in this that I put in for the glams, but there's your lit PCB connector. Okay. There are two steel ball tactile switches here that came with the hilt. The top one is your aux. Bottom is your main. Okay. And that is it. So once you get it turned on, you can put your pommel back on. And then you're ready. Okay. Alright. And that is it. Let's come down to the bottom. Alright. So there it is. Very, very interesting feeling grip. Very unique looking and feeling grip, right? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put a blade in it. Alright, so okay, so this will take a 1-inch blade. To get at your set screw, sorry, I had a little brain fart there for a second. You want to unthread this ring that's up top. Now be careful, because this entire emitter also unthreads, and this is wired, right? So you don't want to unthread this whole thing, or else you're going to kink your wires up and might break them. It's really just this top ring that's going to unthread. Okay, so go ahead and unthread that. Then there is a set screw right here that is underneath that outer shroud. So go ahead and unthread that set screw. I'm going to take this blade plug out. Now, very, very weird setup, right? So because that set screw is underneath that outer shroud, you've got to put your blade in, okay? Then tighten your set screw for your blade. This is, I mean, it is what it is, right? And then you've got to put this outer shroud over and thread it on, and you're good to go, right? I mean, that's just the way it is because of that set screw being underneath this decorative outer shroud. That's the way you got to do it, okay? So once you get that tightened, you are ready to go. Very, very interesting feeling grip. So another thing with having switches down low like this, it's hard to activate them when you're using the hilt. So I'm going to try and activate Clash here. The lock up. Let's see what else we got on here. Oops.
Lord Vader. Lord Vader. Lord Vader.
So there's just the one font on the config, right? All right. But that is it. Again, just a very, very interesting feeling grip in this one. It's like super, super concave here. Anyway, but that's it. That's the Darth Malak from Korbanth. I have gone ahead and put the blade plug that came with the hilt back in here. All right. And I will be getting this in the mail to you, the customer. To everyone else, thank you very much for watching. If anyone has any questions about this particular hilt or anything really, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the Force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.